Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of Competitive Contemplations, a series where I break down various sports concepts and ideas so that you too can decipher the world of competitive sports. Today I'm asking the question, does squash have a fitness issue? You may be wondering what I mean by this, so I'm going to explain it to you. Sports are broken up into four main attributes: technical, tactical, mental and physical. Squash in particular heavily involves all four of these main attributes, unlike a lot of other sports. However, in recent years it's becoming particularly obvious to me that it's not a 25% equal split between all four, and that one of those is dominating. I feel that the physicality side of it is taking over, and that it's almost impossible for someone who's unbelievably skillful, but not quite as superhuman fit as the top guys, to be able to become even a mid-ranked to high-ranked professional player. The issue with this is that most exciting squash comes from the more skillful players, meaning that if it is dominated by the physical players, the entertainment value as a whole goes down. Now, before we move on with the video, it would be great if you could like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Let's get back to the video. Whether you agree with my opinion or not, let me explain my reasoning behind the sentiment that an unreasonable level of fitness is required to become any level of professional squash player. A major thing that's different about squash compared to other sports is how there are very few young players coming through in the men's game and making it to the top at a young age, so very few teenagers making it to the top. The only exception really recently would be Mustafa Asal, who is pretty much built like a man from a young age. I believe the reason it's so rare for this to happen is because the physical requirements at the top level take at least, almost a decade of training 4 or 5 times a day every day, full-time training to actually be able to reach, which means those younger players haven't been able to build up that physical resilience and the training required to get to that level. You do get some players who get to a very high level in the early 20s, and usually that's because they've been training pretty much full-time since they were a teenager, maybe since they were 15, and they've had a good solid 8 years or so to actually get to that level. For your average professional player, they typically peak at late 20s, nowadays even early 30s, and I believe that is down to those physical requirements. Obviously, some of it can be attributed to emotional maturity with age and better tactical understanding and awareness with more time spent on court. But I believe what proves there is physicality is that in the women's game, where the physical requirements aren't as high, there are a lot of teenage girls that actually make it to the top level quite early on. Which I think proves that it's not just an emotional or a tactical thing, that it is because the men's physicality requirements are so high. Now I want to delve into why the physicality is so important and how it highlights the unforgiving nature of squash, and how at the professional level, if there is one player that is a lot fitter than the other player, that less fit player has almost a 0% chance of winning that match no matter the skill difference. Part of it is that the retrieval abilities of a lot of professional players is so good that they can extend rallies by getting every ball back, as well as increase the tempo, making it hard to finish points off. This often leads to errors from the less fit player. A good way of illustrating this is using my health bar analogy. Imagine that each player has a health bar like you would in a computer game. The fitter player will have a larger health bar and more health points, HP, than the less fit player. As the health bar gets low or runs out, the intensity drops off of that player and they start to slow down. The health bar is a visualization of the energy levels that player has. The key thing to note here is that if you have two players of equal fitness, the more skillful player will typically make the less skillful player do more work by moving them around the court, forcing them to do heavier movements while being on the tee and volleying. This means that they should be doing more damage to their opponent than they are to themselves. However, this all changes if the more skillful player is a lot less fit than their opponent. Playing attacking proactive squash comes at a price. While you're hopefully inflicting damage to your opponent, you're also inflicting damage to yourself. This means that if your health bar is a lot smaller than your opponent's, you'll run out of health before them, leading to a lose-lose situation, where if you're playing attacking squash, you run out of health first, and if you're playing passive defensive squash, you'll also get ground down by the fitter player. So the real question is, how do we make it so that having a super high fitness level gives you the edge over the opponent, rather than making it so that it's a requirement to win any matches? Essentially, how can we make it a 25% split between all the attributes I mentioned earlier? Some of you may suggest to lower the tin a couple of inches like they did before to encourage attacking squash. The issue with this is I feel it actually hurts the less fit player more than the fit player. The reason for this is because it makes the court bigger, making you do heavier movements and stretch further in the court. It also makes counter-attacking more effective as the ball will hang above the tin height more often, allowing people to attack off of short balls more frequently. Some PSA events have trialled the best of 3 format to shorten matches to encourage more attacking, exciting squash. However, a lot of the time it feels like in a close match you're robbed of an exciting fifth game that could happen. So it kind of takes away that gladiatorial essence that squash has, which is actually very appealing to the viewer. So is there a way of encouraging exciting squash while also keeping some of the key aspects and good things about the sport? I will say at the top level, most of them do have unbelievable skills and are unbelievably fit, so it is very exciting. However, I do believe 10 or 15 years ago there was more skill involved, as I explained on the Era Clash podcast with Curtis Malik that I did the other week. My main issue is really with the lower professional level, where too many players just hack the ball around with limited tactical awareness, just relying on their speed and fitness to win matches. This isn't good to watch, and frustratingly, unless their opponent is as fit as them or almost as fit as them, they'll normally win comfortably in those matches despite the skill difference. A reason for this is that ball control isn't the main factor that separates the levels in the professional game, unlike at a club level where it does. The main difference as you go up the levels is the pace and intensity goes up, and the ability to maintain that over the course of a match. This obviously requires a great deal of fitness. This simple fact is why this issue is so difficult to solve, as it's deeply rooted into the fabric of squash itself. While I'm aware that this video doesn't have a satisfying conclusion, mainly due to the fact that I'm unsure of what action can be taken to solve the issue, I do hope that this video sparks conversation amongst everyone, as I feel like it's a topic that's gone under the radar for quite some time, and I believe it's hurting the image of squash overall. Let me know in the comments if you have any idea how to solve squash's fitness issue. Thanks for watching this first episode of Competitive Contemplations, and I'll see you next time.